Oh, we're going to do it again. Yeah, hey, I'll step back. All right, good morning, church. How's everybody doing today? Good, good. Oh my, okay, I see a baby. I'm going to try not to look in that direction because I will just be done. I will absolutely be done. Super, super, super cute. Oh my goodness. Guys, look at, hey, as we continue in our sermon series, we're going Living in the Red, looking at the red letter words of Jesus. Today is the last, I don't know why I get all excited about this, but today is the last sermon in this particular part, or the section of the series, where we're looking at the tough sayings of Jesus. Remember again, this isn't so much the things that he says that are tough to hear, but they're tough to do. Although last week, we kind of looked at that concept of what Jesus had to share with us was tough to hear. Right? And sometimes we have those moments where we hear things, it's tough to hear, but they're good for us. Those are, in hindsight, they're good moments, right? And so I want to share with you today, we got a doozy today. What Jesus has to share with us today. The message coming at you is, it's a biggie. It's a biggie. It's going to be rough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be good, right? Ultimately good for us to hear. And the message that he has really reminds me of a young man who was leading a seminar for corporate executives. And the whole entire discussion was about decision making. And he said, here's the question I have for you, group, all right? There are 5 frogs, and they're all sitting on a log. 4 of them decide to jump in the water. How many are left? And the crowd unanimously says 1. And the speaker says, no, you're wrong. There's still 5. Just because the 4 decided to jump in doesn't mean that they did it. And so deciding to do something is different than actually doing it. And so in the text today, we're kind of looking at that concept. Deciding, making decisions, making some commitments. And so we find that today, if you want to share, or I should say open up, we'll share the word in just a moment. John chapter 4 is our text. If you want to turn there, we'll start in a moment. If you have your Bible like me, New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. If you have your smartphones, open up your Bible apps. John chapter 4. While you're turning there or scrolling to find that, I will give you a little background information as to where we're at in the text. In the text today specifically, we're in Galilee. No, we're not in Galilee, but the text is taking place in Galilee. That's where Jesus is at. But before that, he was over here in Samaria. And he spent a couple days in Samaria. You guys kind of know how that all went down, talking with the Samaritan woman at the well. And he's telling her that he is the living water, and that she will quench, or her thirst will be quenched forever. She'll never thirst again. And he goes from that moment over to Cana, which is in Galilee. And this is the first miracle Jesus ever performed. You guys are probably familiar with that as well. Turned water into wine. Not that you're familiar with wine, but just saying. That miracle in general turns water into wine. And then from that moment, he's right here in Galilee, where we're at for the text today. And he's in his hometown. And there's a crowd that's gathering around. Of course, every time Jesus is somewhere, there's a crowd that gathers. His hometown is no different, although it's different crowd-wise, because we know what we get in the crowds there, don't we? They're not there for Jesus. They're not there for the commitment. They're not there to surrender, to follow. They're there for the circus. And I don't mean that Jesus is a clown. I mean that, it's the oohs and the ahs, and that's what they're there for. That's what they want to see. What's Jesus going to do? What's he going to say? Who's he going to heal? It's all about that. And so there's no depth to that, but the crowd is there. And in the crowd, there's a certain man. And I'll give you some background on this man, and we'll move forward with that. This man he's a government official, most likely working either with Herod or under Herod in a direct way. He's wealthy, he's got power, he's got authority, he's got some influence. This guy has clout. He's the kind of guy in that society and high ranking, right, as far as the cultural mindset goes, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. He's the kind of guy, if he's walking towards you, you just kind of scoot to the side and you let the guy pass. That's pretty much it. You let him go by. And so he's there in the crowd, and we're going to be looking at some belief, that is some faith that he has. But I want to caution you a little bit. Okay, don't get too hung up on this guy has this great faith, and he's this shining example necessarily, because understanding that in that culture there were certain rabbis, and I mean a handful, just a very select few specific rabbis that were really known and sought out for their prayers. Their prayers were just some of the most powerful around. And if you had a specific need, you would go find one of those guys. Because for some reason, God would bless more so their prayers than any others. And so you go find them. Specifically for the guy in the text today, that might have been what has caused him to make his journey, because he lives in Capernaum. He's traveled 20 miles to get to where Jesus is at. Some of it, I suspect, is curiosity. Some of it, I suspect, is what I just talked about. Hey, I know those rabbis so-and-sos, and those guys are tough to track down, but I know, because the text tells us, I know that Jesus is actually in Galilee. So I'll take the hike, and I'll go see him, and we'll see what happens. So it could be that. I don't want to paint too much of a negative image of this guy by any means, but I don't want to elevate him too much either, okay? You'll see as we go through the text. But he has traveled 20 miles. His son is literally dying on his deathbed, back home, and he's there and he's begging Jesus to heal his son. And you're thinking, okay, this guy's gone through a lot. This is a lot of travel. He's put in the work, right? He's put in the time, put in the effort. Again, kind of like last week, this is going to be a good field of dreams moment, right? Where he's begging Jesus, heal my son. My son is dying, and Jesus can be like, oh, bro, yeah, let me just take care of this right now, right? But when you see the text, his initial reply, it's almost harsh. At first glance, if you read it, you're like, wow, that is harsh. But digging a little deeper, understanding a little bit more of the context, and understanding, first and foremost, Jesus knows their hearts. We don't. He knows their hearts. He knows that the crowd is there for specific reasons. It's not for him specifically to commit to. They just want to see the show, what's going to happen, what's going to take place. And this guy is kind of in the same boat. He's coming to Jesus for what he can get from Jesus, not specifically or necessarily because of who Jesus is. And so Jesus calls him out. In fact, this is what he says in verse 48. Uh-oh, we're going to get the voice of God when I look down. I'll try to do this. Verse 48, Jesus says this, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. And you just got to put yourself there for just a moment. I mean, the crowd knows this guy. They may not know him, formally as first name basis or anything, but certainly they know position. He's got clout, like I said. They would put him very high in their social ranking, in the social progression, I should say, that pecking order that we talked about as well on previous weeks. And so I imagine they're listening very, very intently as this conversation is ensuing, and they're probably thinking, boy, if Jesus is going to listen to anybody, it's got to be this guy for sure. But then, boom, there's just a rebuke. Just straight up. You know what, man, unless you see signs and wonders, you just won't believe. And again, thinking, wow, that's really harsh. But understand, because you're thinking, boy, this poor guy, but in the Greek rendering, that's a plural form of you. Jesus is really addressing the entire crowd. He's saying all of you need signs and wonders or you won't believe. I mean, he's just throwing out there to everybody. Again, Jesus knows their hearts. Okay, Jesus knows the heart. He knows what's going on. He knows why they're there, and he calls them out on it. Because I can't say they were tricked. I can't say they were duped. But I can say this. They had a misunderstanding of Jesus. They confused the things of Jesus with Jesus himself. And guys, we do it in the church too. I mean, we're guilty of it today as well. Look, we do it in two different ways. One is the building. The church building. There are Christians who they won't worship without a building. They won't do it. If they're snowed in on a Sunday morning, which surprisingly didn't happen this morning. I was kind of shocked with the weather patterns that we have here. But anyways, if they're snowed in on a Sunday morning, they won't make it to church. They won't go to church. They won't worship. Period. They just won't. If they're out of town for some particular reason, with family or what have you, they won't worship. They equate the building, right, the church building, with the church itself. And guys, they're two different things. The building that we're in is just a building. It's just a building. That's all it is. There's nothing special to this building. The church is us. It's the people, all of us. We the people, we the church. Yeah, we are the church. But listen, we confuse it in worship as well. Man, if we don't sing a song that we love, or even like, we won't worship. God forbid if the sermon is boring. We won't worship. Thank you. although others are like, and this sermon this morning, we won't worship. Guys, if the chairs are uncomfortable, give me a break. We won't worship. If there's too many people in the church or too few people in the church, we won't worship. It's ridiculous. We take the things of worship and we confuse them with worship itself. And it's all about Jesus. Everything we say, everything we do, everything should point to Jesus. And if it's anything less than that, shame on us. Shame on us. And so Jesus knows what's going on with these guys. He knows what's going on in the crowd. And he calls them out. And listen, what they need, they collectively, is a come to Jesus moment. And I say that hesitantly because you know how I feel about that. I mentioned this weeks ago. I don't like that phrase. In our society, it has a very negative connection with it or context. It's typically, we use it for interventions. Whether it's drug or alcohol or whatever the case may be, it's a come to Jesus moment or a come to Jesus meeting. Hey, when Bob gets to work this morning, me and him, we're going to have a come to Jesus meeting. It's not you're going to share the gospel. That's not what it's about. It's not. It actually has really nothing to do with Jesus. That's why I don't like the phrase. But guys, it's meant to be understood as an eye-opening experience. It's a moment of realization. It's an aha moment. It's a moment where you see where you are and where you're headed. And so, for that sense, it's good. Because let me just say this from a biblical perspective. I mean, honestly. To be accepted by God, we have to come to Jesus. So essentially, we all really have to have a come to Jesus moment just to be redeemed back to the Father. Okay, but back to the text-wise, that moment, that come to Jesus moment, it's that aha moment. So when the eyes are open, that's what Jesus needs them to see where they're at, where they're going, where they're headed, what they're doing, because He is the Christ. And He might just be seen by the crowd as a rabbi, and He's good. He's a good teacher. He's a good preacher. He's just an all-around good guy, but maybe not much more than that, although He can do some miracles. And that's pretty much it. They kind of sprinkle some of those things in there. And so that's why they show up. What's He going to do? What's He going to say? And again, the oohs and the ahs, and the entire crowd is all in the same boat. They need that moment. They need that come to Jesus moment where they realize and recognize who Jesus really is. And in verse 48, like we've covered, Jesus just rebukes them. And, because in verse 49, He starts begging again more to Jesus, and He says, unless you have signs and wonders, you just won't believe. And He begs a little more. And then in verse 50, he says this. Jesus says this, "Go, your son will live." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him, and he went on his way. Now, I don't know the depth of the faith that's there. I don't know any of that. I don't really want to get into that because really that's not for me to say. I know there's some belief because the Bible says that he did believe what Jesus had to say, and he did go. He did head on his way. And I wonder if there's maybe a different tone in his voice, or maybe there's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe not that, but maybe there was some body language or a facial expression. There was something different maybe, because he kind of goes from harsh rebuke to a very soft, gentle, at least it seems in my mind, go, your son will live. And I love this. I love this whole part of the story is my favorite part. Because again, it doesn't really depend on he has this great, enormous faith or he has very little faith. It doesn't matter in this part of the story because I love it because he goes. Jesus said, "Go, your son will live," and he goes. And so he's heading home. All right, now keep this in mind. 20 miles, okay? 20 miles to get there. He's halfway, roughly is at the halfway point. And his servants, they're coming to him because his son he's healed, he's doing better. They're so excited. They don't want to wait. They don't want to just sit there and be like, oh, 2 more days and he'll be home, right? And they're so excited. They just want to go share. And so they take off and they head his direction. They're like, we're just going to go this way. We're going to get to Galilee. We'll find him, and we're going to share this with him. And so they're at the halfway point. They've each gone 10 miles. And they're like, "Master, your son, he's going to be better. His fever broke, and he's going to be great. He's going to be good." And the guy's excited. And he says, "Okay, well, tell me this then. When did the fever break?" And this is my favorite part. And he says, "It was around the 11th hour yesterday." So around 1 in the afternoon, essentially. And he's thinking back, hey, that's when I left. That's when Jesus told me to go and my son would live. I don't know, there's something about that, guys. Again, it can be just a sliver of faith, or it can be just enormous faith. But just to see the way God, I just love the way God works. He's just so cool. I don't know how to say it any other way. You might think that's like superficial, but I don't know how to say it. He's so amazing. He's so cool. I love the way he works in those little kind of details like that. And so he gets there. He's all excited. His son is going to live. And I love the next verse. Well, not specifically, but verse 53 says this, and he himself believed in all his household. I love that. But listen, remember, he didn't go to Jesus because of who Jesus is, and specifically is in his life, or means to him. He went there looking for something. He went there to get something from Jesus. Guys, we do the same. We're guilty of the same. Imagine how many, and I'll use myself as an example, okay? And this wasn't part of the message, so I hope I don't mess it up. When I was a Christian, quote unquote, and I use that term loosely because it was right here. It was just a name tag that I wore. I didn't really understand Christianity, although I did attend church, although that church attendance was like once every 6 weeks-ish, right? I wasn't really going to Jesus for who Jesus was. I really wasn't understanding the depth of who he is, right? Who he really, really is in my life and in this world. I wasn't understanding that. But I knew that when I had problems, I could go to him and I could pray. And I would go. I'm not saying that that's bad, so don't hear me wrong. Definitely pray when you have need, okay? That's part of what he does. He loves us, okay? But I would find myself going to him, praying when I wanted something from him, and then I would kind of come back and just, scoot off the heels of that, and I would go about my own business again for weeks and weeks and months, and then, something, I got to come back to him again, and that's a danger that we need to avoid. That is essentially where the guy in the text was at. Hey, I need something, and I'm pretty sure Jesus can give this to me, so I'm going to go there and I'm going to get it. You see, it was the miracle. It was the miracle that really created the belief. At the end, he believed, and his whole household believed, okay? Now, I'm not trying to downplay miracles by any means either, okay? Miracles were important. They had value. And the reason for a miracle was to draw people to God. That was it. And if it didn't do that, which they always did, but if it didn't do that, then it would have been a waste of time. And so that was always the purpose. There's a miracle, it draws people to God. Guys, as the church, we kind of have a similar role. Not to perform miracles, but to draw people to God, draw people to Jesus. And so every single thing we do as a church should be drawing people to Jesus. Okay, so if the music that we sing, okay, the music we sing doesn't draw people to Jesus, then it's just noise. If the sermon doesn't draw people to Jesus, then there's no need for me to stand up here and talk. If our prayers don't draw people to Jesus, then they're just empty words. If our communion meditations don't draw people to Jesus, then why even speak? Everything we say and hear and do, it should all point to Jesus 100%. That is our purpose as a church. That is why we exist. In church, I mean, again, us, the people, not the building, but us, the people. That's why we're here, to make disciples. Who make disciples? Who make disciples? Who make disciples? Who make disciples? That's our role, guys. To be the salt, to be light. Everything we do should point to Jesus. Absolutely everything. And if it doesn't, then shame on us. Honestly. So that's the sermon. Here's the message. And you laugh, but let me just share this with you. On Fridays, usually Fridays, I'm good to go. Sermon-wise, Friday morning I come in here at 8 o'clock. I'm about 98%. I can just pick this up, and I can just roll through and practice through, just like I'm doing now, which is kind of scary. I can go through, and I might have to tweak a few things, but I'm pretty solid. Okay, and I don't mean that as a bragging. I just mean I put a lot of time, I put a lot of hours into this, I put a lot of thought, a lot of prayer. Typically, that's my Friday. Friday is really fine-tuned, really polished, make sure the PowerPoint is remotely workable. Work on those goofy videos that you see all the time, okay? So there's some time spent doing that, but this past Friday, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I gotta tell you, for me, that's like straight up panic mode. You can ask my wife. Like, chicken with your head cut off, that was me. I was panic mode. Because the sermon, for me, was all done. It was all written. I did this. I got it complete. I'm like, yes, I like the direction. I pick it up. I start to go with it. And then, bang, I hit a wall. And I consistently kept going to a certain point and hitting a wall. And any preachers in the room or speakers, you know what I'm saying? That's brutal. That's really scary. So you don't want to get there. So I kept hitting this wall. And I spent more time, honestly, praying about this. For real, I feel that I put in practice time at a certain point. Because I didn't know how to get past it, and I kept stepping back and just saying, all right, Lord, what is it? What is it? What is the block? What is going on? And I just kept asking, remove whatever was there. If there was something that was distracting me in some way, and maybe it was psychological, just remove that. So just take that away and speak to me and speak through me. And was I always praying? I was like, just let's do this. And I would try to go, and it just stop and stop. And what he was saying was, go over here. And I'm not even joking. And I was like, no, you must be confused. I'm not going to say that. That's crazy. We're over here. Jesus, come on. This is where we're at over here. And every time I went that way, it was a block. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday, I said, all right, Lord, I surrender. And I went that direction. And it was tough. Man, it was tough. But we went all the way to the end. And I had to say, okay, that's the message. Alrighty. So here's the message. Guys, I think as a church, we need that come to Jesus moment. And again, an aha moment. A moment to have our eyes open. A moment to realize where we're at and where we're headed. And I mean it sincerely, because I think if we just continue to do everything that we're doing now and don't change a single thing, I know change is a scary word, but if we do everything we're doing now, I kind of see us as a dead church within 5 years. And I'm being generous, honestly. I think it'll happen before 5. I'm just being generous. You know what a dead church looks like? No new visitors. No new baptisms. No community outreach. You know how we're doing? You want to check the scorecard? I've been here 4 months, 2 visitors. They didn't even live here. They live in Indianapolis, and they were in town on a mission-related or ministry-related thing going on with the college that they work with. They don't even live in Goshen or Elkhart. A man and his wife, 2. Nobody from no organic first-time visitors. Let me clarify, because you can say, well, there are lots of visitors. Yes, we do. We have family, and I love your families. Please continue to bring them. They're super great. I'm talking about an authentic, organic individual who's never stepped foot in this church ever before. 2 in 4 months. How about this? Baptisms in the past 3 years. 0. That's a problem. It's kind of scary. Outreach events. 0 really planned for 2019. I know there's a couple things that are kind of like being discussed. Again, we're on the log, kind of talking, so there might be some things to that, but at this point, guys, 0. It's just, it comes down to the log. We got to get off the log. We do. We got to get off the log. We got to get in that pond. We're supposed to be making disciples. We need to get out and just make disciples. I know we're praying for 40 days for the lost. Please continue to do that. I really believe that's a wonderful thing that we absolutely need to be doing specifically as a church, for sure. But listen, we're praying for, this guy and that girl. We're praying for people in our lives that we know. We know them by name. Again, that's not bad. Don't hear me wrong. Please continue to pray for them, okay? But there's a community outside of this building right now that is filled with people that are lost. They don't know Jesus. And I don't know that we are reaching, I don't know that they even know we exist. There are people in this community right now that are unchurched. By unchurched definition, unchurched means they were in church, they got out of church for a certain amount of time, and they came back to church, or they want to come back to church. You'd say unchurched, they've never been in church. That's not true. They're unchurched. That's the official definition, but there are those who have never been in church. They're in the community. They're around us, guys. Do they know that we're here? Are we a light? Are we a beacon in the darkness right now? And the hands and feet of Christ and the salt, all these things, all these churchy words that we say, are we doing that? Are we doing that? Because if not, we got to get off the lawn. Well, let me close it this way. Paul said, I have become all things to all people that I may win some to Christ. Right? And we say, yeah, go Paul, yeah. I'm right there with you, right? And we kind of echo those and be like, yeah, Paul, I'm right there. I'm doing that. Let me break that down into today, how that really breaks down for us, okay? Because it comes down to a question. And I'm kind of on the fence. I'm kind of, on one hand, I'm hoping you guys are going to answer, like literally answer when I'm done. And on the other hand, I'm hoping that you don't say anything and you just chew on it. So you surprise me and go with what comes natural, okay? Here's the question. Keep it in mind. Biblically, morally, ethically, there's absolutely no change, no bend, okay? So within the parameters of biblical, moral, and ethical transportation means, okay? Here's the question. Within those parameters, are you, as a church, willing to do whatever it takes, morally, biblically, and ethically, to bring the lost and the unchurched into this building? I mean, that's really the question. That defines where we're going to move as we move, because we're going to move forward. Listen, as Christians, church, Christianity, what have you, you never standing still. There's always forward movement or backward movement. It's always just one of the two. There really isn't a standstill. That answer, yes, no, whatever, that's going to determine where we're going to move forward to. What's it going to be? Is it going to move forward to some life support? And eventually I hope not. Or is it going to spring us forward into doing what we're supposed to be doing as a church? And really hitting the community, and really getting out there, and really showing the world what it means to be like Christ. Listen, let me show you this, guys. I'm done after this, okay? Promise. Hopefully not done doing. That was a concern, though. I love you guys. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not just saying it because I'm saying it. I've been here 4 months. If I was here for 2 weeks and be like, I love you guys, you'd be like, what? Okay. But honestly, 4 months, going on 5, I love you guys. You guys are great. And I want you to know sincerely, I'm not just saying this, you are the most wonderful congregation, group of people that I've had the blessing of being a part of. And I mean that. And if other congregations are watching, well, shame on them. How about that? Seriously, you guys, you're loving, you're good, you're giving. Oh my gosh, it's a joy to be here. It's a blessing to be here. And I want you to know this, your elders and your deacons, they are good. They are good men. They have good, strong marriages. They're healthy leadership. You guys are a healthy congregation. I know we have some quirks, every congregation does, but you guys are healthy. Here's the point to all this. We have so much potential. We do. We've got so much to offer the world around us, but guys, we got to get off the log, or it's never going to happen. Everything we do, everything we say, everything we hear, it should all be about Jesus, and it should all point to Jesus. And guys, anything less than that, shame on us. We're just a social club. And that's it. I know that's not easy to hear. Don't shoot the messenger. That's why I said there's a sermon, here's the message. I'm putting it where it needs to be. It's his. It's always his message. Always. Guys, this time it just ended up being a little more rough for me this week. But I say it in love. It's an eye-opening experience. Where are we going to go from here? What are we going to do? We move forward, and in what direction are we moving forward? Because guys, again, it's all about Jesus. And so if you're sitting here this morning as a Christian, as a sincere, sold-out follower of Jesus Christ, but you're hearing this and thinking, man, you know what? Yeah, I can get off that log. and you're thinking you need to, I want to encourage you to do that. Because this is, you know what this time is. We all know it. This is our invitation when we kind of meander into this, and you know what? All the smooth or goofy talk inside, guys, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is it. All the songs we sing, all the prayers, the meditations, the preaching, it's all worthless and meaningless if it comes to this point and nobody responds. I'm not saying that so that you have to come up here, but I'm telling you, if you are realizing that you want something different, and you're ready to get off the log, and don't worry about what anybody looks at you and thinks about you, it's about God. That's all that matters, what He thinks. You're ready to get off the log and recommit, rededicate. I want to be standing right here while we sing. And this is open for you. Of course, it's open for everybody. If you're here this morning and you don't know Jesus in the way that we're talking about, then absolutely we want to make that right. And so we're, again, inviting you to come forward, receive Him as Lord, as Savior, to be baptized, and start that journey. Start that journey with us, which would be really wonderful as well. So guys, you know the deal. You know the drill. You know how this works. This is it. This is your time. This is your decision to make. So if you would, please stand with me as we sing.